guys. Whew, I'm so nervous about this. This is really putting myself out there tonight. Something that definitely crossed my mind and a lot of other people's minds before I hit the road in our RV was some serious fears about the safety of my children. I have to warn you in advance that it may be a little triggering for some, so I just want to put that warning out there before we move any further along. We're going to talk about trafficking, crime rates, and CPS. And I'm going to share a very personal story of something that happened to us during our very first contract during our visit to New York City. I have never shared it on a video. I've only shared it with a handful of people in my inner circle. And I have been afraid to talk about it. And today I'm going to talk about it because I feel like it's important and I don't believe that we should be living in fear. So please watch to the end. I have a lot of facts, a lot of statistics to share with you today, and a couple of personal stories. Welcome back to No Ordinary Path. I am Kristin, and we are inside Wendy, our 37-foot travel trailer. My husband is a travel nurse, and we have 3 kids and a dog, and we travel the whole country. We have traveled coast to coast, and we are just over a year and a half into full-time living, but we are about to celebrate 2 years of owning this rig. Sometimes when I am struggling with fear, I like to remember some of my favorite Bible verses. As I was going through this morning, looking at some of these verses, I realized that fear not is listed over 80 times throughout the Bible. Fear is something that we all deal with often. My point in sharing some of these stories with you today is to hopefully help you to fear not, to go out and live a life that is worry-free or as close to worry-free as you could get. A life that allows you to go explore and do things and let your children do things. In making this video, I'm not trying to minimize any of the pain and suffering that other families have gone through. So please know that from the bottom of my heart, I truly, genuinely feel for other families and parents who have gone through horrendous tragedies. I just need to say that before we get started. When our parents were raising us, and when our parents' parents were raising them, they did not live in the same kind of fear that parents today are living in on a regular basis. And this is largely due to social media, the internet, the media in general. Fear sells. Fear sells news stories so that people will watch the news. It sells movies, it sells TV shows, it even sells blog posts. Blog posts like this one that was traveling around right before the Super Bowl. It was an article that talked about human trafficking, and especially during large sporting events. I have done some research, and I looked up actual statistics for 2019 from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And I'm going to get to those after I share my story. In this blog article was pop-up after pop-up of ads. There were ads all down the side, all over the front of it. You can hardly read the article. There were so many ads. I believe the point was more to scare people and to get people to click. It was click-mongering, if you will. And I think that there's a lot of that happening. Guilty as charged of spreading some of these stories. The problem is we don't always know if these stories are true. And we all read them as fact. And when you get hit over and over and over and over with stories like that, you start to believe that this is happening everywhere, all the time, and that you're not safe anywhere. And statistically speaking, that is not true. Now, I'm going to pause right here because human trafficking is the most heinous, disgusting thing. And it makes me so angry that it still happens in the United States, the land of the free. I cannot believe that we still have to deal with slavery. It's disgusting and it's unexcusable. And I am not minimalizing the fact that there are people who deal with this on a daily basis. My story begins in New York City. One day, I was going to take the kids to Long Island to visit my relatives while John went paintballing with his best friend. Navigating to Long Island was fine. Getting there was fine. The time that we shared with my family was awesome. And then it was time to leave. Chloe had an accident, and we were supposed to go directly to John's friend's house for dinner. So I found a Walmart in Long Island in a suburban neighborhood, and when I arrived there, Chloe was asleep. I made the decision to go inside the store without my children. I left them in the truck with the doors locked. It was 60 degrees outside, overcast. There was no cause for alarm for heat, the car heating up or anything like that. And Ethan had a tablet that had Marco Polo on it, which is the app that I use with my family to communicate. And so we were in communication the entire time that I was in the store. Oh my gosh, you left your children in your car in New York. You can just comment right now about what a terrible mother I am. But I urge you to listen to the rest of the story and to the facts that I'm going to present later on in this video before you rip me apart. I beelined straight inside. I bought a pair of pants and a package of underwear, and I went through the self-checkout line. All told, I was probably in the store for about 5 minutes. When I got back to the truck, I was met with a lady who was standing right next to the truck with a child on her hip, who asked me, "Is this your truck? Are these your kids? Did you leave them in the truck?" And I said, "Yes, I just ran inside to grab a pair of pants." And she's like, "We don't stand for that here. That is not okay. I can't believe that you would do this." And she starts going off on me. And then she says, "I've called the cops and they're on their way. We don't put up with that here." And then I started to panic. I had just seen on Facebook an article about a woman who went into Starbucks and left her children in the car, and then they were taken away from her, and she fought a 6-month battle for custody for children from CPS. There's probably a lot more to that story that I didn't hear, and probably most of that wasn't true. But that is what I read on Facebook only a few weeks before the incident. So I was immediately freaked out. I tried to get in my car. She was trying to block the way into my car with her kid on the hip, still lecturing me about what a horrible person I am. How could I even do this? And her husband is standing behind the truck with his cell phone, videoing my license plate and capturing the entire moment on camera. So I get into my car. I'm shaking. The kids are completely fine. They have no idea what's happening. They don't know what's going on. And the guy, the husband, comes around the truck and tries to block me from getting out of the parking lot, to which I swerve around him and leave. And the whole time he's got his camera on me, and the wife is just like flailing her arms, yelling as I'm leaving the parking lot. I was extremely shaken up. So much so that I just started out loud. I was praying. I was like, "Lord, please don't take my children. Don't let them take my children. Don't let them take my children." I was out loud. I was over and over praying, and I was shaking and crying, and I think I might even have a little bit of PTSD to this day because my heart is racing right now, even just telling you about this. I wasn't scared about my kids being kidnapped. I was scared about some bystander thinking that I was a horrible mother and CPS coming and taking my children. I thought they were following me. I left, and I couldn't even concentrate on my GPS. I found myself weaving in and out of a neighborhood, trying to lose a tail that may or may not have actually existed, until I just finally pulled over and completely lost it. Sobbing and crying, and the children are like, "What's the matter, Mom? Like, why are they going to come and take us? Like, who's going to come and take us? Are the police going to take us?" I had to continue driving into Queens, and once I got there, I asked my husband to meet me at the curb and park for me because I couldn't even deal with parallel parking in Queens. Okay, let's just be honest. I didn't tell anybody what was happening. I didn't even tell John what was happening until after dinner, and I was so scared. I was so scared. We saw cop cars and police lights on our way into Queens, and the kids were all like, "Are they coming after us? Are they coming to get us?" And for months after, Ethan thought that every time we saw a police officer that they were coming to take them away from us, which is on me because of the freak out that I had. I also thought for months that I was going to get a knock on my door. I I know now that that's an irrational fear, but I thought that they had my license plate and information on me and that they were going to find it and track me and follow me on YouTube or whatever and figure out where we were staying, and I was going to hear a knock on the door. The problem is that there are so many people out there who have such strong opinions on what you should and shouldn't do with your children that they can make a phone call and your life can be completely changed because someone else had a strong opinion about your parenting. Okay, let's break this down a little bit. There are laws in different states regarding the ages and legality of leaving children in your car unattended. And I didn't know this at the time. Later, when I had composed myself, I did look up the specific laws, and I'm going to link them below so that you can check them out too. Because something that I do in every state we travel to now is check and see what the laws are in regards to my unattended children. You might have gathered that I'm sort of a free-range style parent to some degree. In New York City at the time that we were there, it was not illegal to leave children over a certain age unattended in the vehicle. I was completely within legal limits to do what I did. The likelihood that my children would have overheated in the truck is extremely minimal because it was really cool outside and because my children are old enough to open the door and let themselves out should they get really hot. But just in case you were wondering, I did look up some statistics on overheating in a car. In 2019, there were 51 cases of children who died of heat stroke in a vehicle that was left unattended. According to the CDC, of these 51 cases, the average body temperature was 107.2, and the average length of time that those children were left in the vehicle was 4.6 hours. Not minutes, hours. That's somebody completely forgetting that the child is in the car. That's not a mom who's running in to run a very quick errand. It was not hot that day, so for us, this was a moot point. Let's talk about the probability, statistically speaking, of my children getting stolen, or your children getting stolen, or abducted. National Center for Missing and Exploited Children have recently posted the statistics for missing children in 2019, and this was the findings. 29,000 children were reported missing in 2019. Of the 29,000, 91% of them were endangered runaways, meaning these were kids who had fled from the home. Of those, 1 in 6 of them end up in sex trafficking circles. So 91% of the 29,000 missing children were runaways. 4% were from family abductions. Usually this is like a custody situation where a family member who doesn't have custody takes them. 4% are considered critically missing, and these are children who are now 18 to 20 and are still missing. 1% of them have been lost completely and never found. And less than 1% of them, some statistics that I've seen say 0.1%, were actually abducted by complete strangers. Calculate that out. That means 29 children. There may be a few more than that. 29 children were abducted by strangers in the United States in 2019. For those 29 families, that is the most horrific, horrible thing that could ever happen. There are 74.2 million kids in the United States. Statistically speaking, it is very, 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 very unlikely that your child is going to be abducted. You hear about missing child cases all over the news, all over social media, on the internet, even all over posters plastered in Walmart. The likelihood that my kids would have been taken out of the truck in the middle of broad daylight in a public parking lot are very, very, very low. So we've addressed the heat exhaustion issue, which is a non-issue, and the likelihood that my children would be taken out of the truck in the 5 minutes that I was in the store. Let's talk about CPS. I know that they help over 3 million children in America that are dealing with abuse and neglect. I believe that there is a need for people to look out for kids who are being abused and neglected, who can't help themselves. I believe that that is a necessity. There was an incident that we had not too long ago where I was brushing Chloe's hair in a bathroom in an RV park, and she was screaming her head off because there was a lot of tangles and she has a very tender head, hence the haircut. But a woman who walked by the bathroom overheard the screaming and stuck her head in to ask if everything was okay. And she asked a couple of times directly to Chloe if she was okay. And while I was a little put off at the time that I was only trying to help my child brush her hair and I felt seemingly accused of child abuse, I was not actually accused of anything. And that person had every right to check in. And I'm glad that she checked in, because I'm sure there are incidences where a child is in fact being taken advantage of, and it's important to report those. Child Protective Services is not going to come and immediately just take the kids away for no reason at all. I do have a sister-in-law who is a social worker, and we talked to her a little bit about our fears regarding CPS and our lifestyle, and she reiterated that we obviously love our children. We put a roof over their head, we feed them. They're obviously not being abused or neglected, and so we wouldn't have anything to worry about anyways. And so I try to keep that in the back of my head, and I try not to focus on the stories that are out there about people that have decided to take a very unordinary path and other people that don't understand that, reporting them. I don't have any statistics on how often CPS gets called but doesn't actually end up doing anything. I would venture to say that it's probably a lot. We shouldn't stop reporting things that we see, but we also shouldn't live in fear. I should not live in fear that they're going to come and take my children. A few months ago, there was an incident, I guess you could call it, at an RV park where the RV park felt like I wasn't quite keeping tabs on my children like I should be. And they were at a playground within eyesight with a walkie. And we felt completely comfortable letting them play there. We even made a game out of them checking in on the walkie every time I hit the call button. And they would go to the end of the slide and wave their arms at me and talk to me on the walkie. But the RV park did not agree, and I was asked to make sure that I was with my children 100% of the time. I went to Facebook and I posted about my experience, and one of my good friends mentioned to me that, did you know that we live in a safer world today than it was when we were growing up? Really? I thought, like, that's crazy talk. So I took it upon myself to go check it out on the FBI website. For comparison's sake, I'm going to stick with the total number of crimes reported. And in 1982, which is the year that I was born, there was approximately 12.9 million crimes. It also gives the population in 1982 as 231.5 million people. So you could figure the percentage if you really wanted to. In 2018, there was 8.44 million crimes reported. And the population was much higher, which means the percentage is even lower. 2019 statistics have just recently been released, but they're not included on this table right here. But in all, this is showing that today is actually safer than it was the year that I was born in 1982. And you can see the statistics here. They're just getting smaller and smaller, slightly, very slightly smaller every year. It is actually safer today than it was when we were growing up as kids. The difference is the fear-mongering and the click-mongering that our generation is having to deal with as we raise our kids. And so I want to encourage you to not be so scared by all of the things that you're seeing online. Part of what spurred all of this and timing and me sharing this story with you is that I've been reading this book, I actually just finished reading this book called Free Range Kids by Lenore Skenazy, and I might be saying her name wrong, but the book really spoke to me about a lot of things, and I think it's a really fascinating read. If you're interested, I will put the link down below so that you can check it out also. She does have a website called freerangekids.com and a blog called Let Grow. And on that blog, there's this really great category tab that you can click on called Really, and it's a lot of fears that we as parents face today, and all kinds of statistics and information debunking a lot of those fears. So it's a great resource. You should check it out. I'll put that down below as well. I feel like we have a pretty free-range-ish kind of style of parenthood. We allow our children a lot of independence. We allow our children the freedom to just be kids and to figure out things without us around, for them to problem solve and learn how to critically think without always having adults to tell them how to do things and figure things out. So I feel like we do that a lot, and yet there are still times when I get caught up in the same fears that you might be working through yourself. Case in point, here in Phoenix, and in Tucson for that matter, as we drove into town, there are signs all over above the highways that say, "Watch out for human trafficking, report it if you see it." Now, my brain sees all those signs and it thinks, oh my gosh, it's so bad here. This is such a huge problem here. And it is. I am not downplaying that it happens here. I know it happens here. But my brain is seeing these signs. It's seeing these stories on Facebook. It's seeing this Super Bowl article going around. And it's dealing and processing with all these things that are being hit all the time, and to the point where my brain feels like at any given moment that my 5-year-old daughter is going to be picked up and sold into sex slavery. I was at Bed Bath & Beyond the other night, and I had all 3 kids with me, and John was on his way to meet me. We had circled around to where the bedding area was. I turned around and Chloe was gone. That moment was not a cause for concern. I started calling out her name, Chloe, Chloe, where are you? And then I started walking around the store, Chloe, Chloe, and she never responded to me. And so my brain starts going, oh my gosh, she wandered outside. Someone picked her up. She's not in the store anywhere. I talk to an employee. They call a code Adam, and all employees are helping me find Chloe. John pulls in. I call him immediately. I say, Chloe's missing. I've walked the store several times. I can't find her. He's like, okay, I'm coming in. She's probably hiding. I'm coming in. The little stinker was hiding. I don't even know where she was hiding. At this point, I was like shaking, and I just picked her up, and the kids are like, what's the matter, Mom? And I was like, I thought someone took you. And so there I go, like instilling the same fear into my children. And when really the odds were probably not that my child was stolen, the odds were much higher that she was hiding in the curtain section or in the bedding section. And just being a little 5-year-old kid, of course you're still going to deal with these fears. I still deal with these fears too, even when I'm doing all the right things. I did go back and research the statistics for human trafficking in Arizona, and I found out that for 2019, Arizona was ranked number 15 for rate of human trafficking. And Kansas, believe it or not, was ranked at number 10. So, even though there's signs all over here, I never think about it or am worried about it when I'm back home in Kansas. But it's actually a worse problem there, according to statistics. Who knew? Number 1, Washington, D.C. Don't even get me started. I went to the CDC website and I looked up the causes of death and injuries based on age. And I found that the number 1 cause of death in children is car accidents. Actually, specifically, it's unintentional accidents. And then it breaks it off into a whole separate chart. And in that chart, it talks car accidents is the first one, but it also lists drowning and fires and other accident type of things. To close this out, just like we take precautions against car accidents by wearing seatbelts, against drowning by teaching our kids to swim, and against fire by making sure that we are taking care of our smoke alarms and that our kids know fire safety. We can take the same kind of precautions to keep our kids from being kidnapped, even though statistically they are much less likely to be kidnapped than any one of those other things. These include things like making sure that you communicate with your children about stranger danger. Maybe you might want to take a family self-defense class, which is actually on our list. We won a free family self-defense class at the STEM event that we went to a few weeks ago, which is super cool. Or maybe you implement a walkie-talkie system with your kids. Whatever it is, implement something that helps you to overcome the fear that your kids might be kidnapped. Just like you implement things for car accidents and drownings and fires, and then go out and live your life, not fearing that these things are going to happen to your children. You don't not let them get in the car with you. You don't not let them ever go swimming. You still do all of those things. You just take precautions. And that helps you to overcome the fear. I'll leave you with this. Matthew 6:27 says, "Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life?" You can't add more time. So you might as well make the best of every moment you have. Cheers. If you'd like to look up any of the resources that I've mentioned in this video, be sure to check down below in the description, as I will put links for all of the statistics that I quoted today and a couple of other helpful ones as well. Thank you so much for watching this Real Talk Tuesday. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking with me. If you're new to this channel, thank you so much. I'm sorry this was your first episode. But we do have a lot more lighthearted episodes that you can find on our channel, so go check them out. Stay tuned this weekend for the last leg of our journey to Phoenix. I think you're going to enjoy it. Thanks for watching.